Okay, so if you're a homeowner, you've probably thought about how to tap into your equity. Well, today, we're looking at a new kind of financial product that's causing a huge debate all across the country. Is it a smart investment partnership, or is it just a really expensive loan in disguise?
This quote from consumer advocate Wendy Gilch just hits the nail on the head. When a company offers you a big chunk of cash from your home with no new debt and zero monthly payments, it's so easy to think, wait, this sounds like free money. But as we're about to see, it's way more complicated than that.
So, what is this product that seems to be promising the impossible? Let's dig into the idea behind what the industry calls home equity investments, or HEIs for short.
Here's the basic deal. A company gives you cash today. In exchange for that cash, they get a piece of your home's future growth. So instead of you paying them back month after month, they get their money and their profit out of your home's increased value when you eventually sell.
And you can see why this is so tempting, right? Especially right now with interest rates being so high. The marketing is incredibly powerful. Get cash from your home, but without taking on a new loan, without paying interest, and without adding another monthly bill to your budget.
And this is where things get really interesting and really controversial. The companies that offer these products call them investments, a totally new kind of partnership. But regulators and consumer advocates are looking at this and asking a pretty pointed question. Is this really just a mortgage that's been dressed up to look like something else?
So you have these two completely different stories. On one side, the industry is saying, look, this is not a loan. You don't make monthly payments, there's no interest rate, and hey, if your home's value goes down, that's our risk, not yours. But then regulators fire back, hold on a second, this deal is secured by a lien on the house, there are appraisals and closing costs, and you have to pay it back when you sell. All of that sounds an awful lot like a mortgage to us.
And this quote from Pennsylvania Representative Arvind Venkat really just boils the whole regulatory argument down to one simple idea. He's basically saying, forget the marketing labels. If the product acts like a mortgage in all the ways that matter, then it should have the same rules and consumer protections as a mortgage. Period.
Okay, so that's the debate. But how does this actually play out for a homeowner? Let's just walk through the typical process, from start to finish.
It's pretty straightforward, really. Step 1, you get your cash up front. Step 2, in exchange, that company now owns a stake in your home's future value. And then finally, down the road, when you decide it's time to sell your house or maybe refinance, that company gets paid back its initial investment plus its share of the profit from your home's appreciation.
And here's why this whole debate is so incredibly important. For most of us, our home isn't just a place to live. It's our life savings. It is the biggest financial asset we will ever own. And that's what makes the stakes here so incredibly high.
Yeah, this is not just some academic argument over definitions. The outcome of this showdown has massive financial consequences, both for the companies offering these deals and for the homeowners who are signing on the dotted line.
Get this, according to the industry's own representatives, for their business model to even work, they need to see annual returns somewhere in the range of 18 to 20%. That is a huge return, and it has to come from somewhere, right? It comes from the homeowner's equity.
But here's the collision course. If a state like Pennsylvania says, nope, these are actually mortgages, then they suddenly fall under what are called usury laws. Those are basically rules to prevent super high-cost lending. And in this case, those laws would cap the returns way down in the mid-single digits, a tiny fraction of what the industry says it needs to survive.
So what's the industry's response to that? Well, their trade group was pretty blunt. They said that applying mortgage laws to their product wouldn't just be a regulation, it would be a de facto ban. They're basically saying, you're not just changing the rules, you're putting us out of business in this state.
And look, while this fight is really heating up in Pennsylvania, don't for a second think this is just a local squabble. Lawmakers and regulators all over the U.S. are now taking a really hard look at these exact same products.
This is truly a national conversation now. I mean, from the East Coast in places like Maryland and Massachusetts, all the way to the West Coast in Washington and Oregon, state governments are all trying to figure out how to classify and regulate this new part of the market.
It's helpful to take a step back and see the bigger picture here. This pattern isn't new. We've seen this movie before. A novel financial product comes along that promises to unlock home equity in a new way. It starts to get popular, and then regulators have to step in and try to figure out what the rules should be.
So where does this all go from here? Well, it seems like there are two main paths forward. Either we end up with this confusing patchwork of different state laws, which would make for a really complex market, or we could see a brand new federal framework, a whole new set of rules designed specifically for these kinds of products.
And that brings us back to the ultimate question at the heart of all this. On one hand, you have financial innovation that's giving homeowners a new way to get cash when they need it, and on the other, you have the fundamental need to protect people and their single biggest asset. This whole debate forces us to ask, where exactly do we draw that line?